It's the Life After High School podcast.
So Devon, welcome to the show, man. I'm really excited to have you on. I've been a fan of your ski career and everything growing up and watching you kind of develop and following your races and your competition. So I'm really honored to have you on the show. So thanks for being here, man.
Oh, thanks. No problem. It's good to be here. It's good to chat with you. And it's a fun project that you're working on. So just glad to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. So with that being said, can you kind of take us through, because you've done a lot since kind of your transition leaving high school. Can you kind of take us through kind of from that transition to kind of where we are now, and then we'll kind of go through it that way?
Sure. Well, I'm 38 years old right now. So, I mean, high school was 19 years ago, which is kind of scary to think about. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Back in my day, we had OAC, which is like grade 13 for your parents' generation.
Yeah.
For my generation, it was called OAC. So after I was 19, I moved out to Alberta to join the Canadian national ski team. It still is based in Canmore, Alberta, but at that time, there was like a residency rule. So if you wanted to be a member, you had to actually be resided where the base of the national team was. It was a centralized program. So I moved out to Alberta. I started University of Calgary, although I never finished. But I'm going back to school right now where I am now. But so from the age of 19 to the age of 36, I was a professional skier with the Canadian national ski team and traveling the World Cup circuit, doing like the World Championships and Olympics thing. So that was my life for many, many, many years. And it was quite the adventure and a lot of fun. Like I said, I put my schooling on ice for the 2006 season, because I did some correspondence courses that year, but that was my leading into my first Olympic Games back in 2006 in Torino, Italy. And my last Olympic Games was the year I retired, and that was in 2018, 3 years ago. So.
Nice. Now, looking back on that kind of that time period for now, what was something like, why cross country ski, man? Why was that? Like, what was that about? What was that like?
I was too small to be a hockey player. That's the real story. No, joking aside, like hockey, this wouldn't surprise many people from Sudbury, but hockey was my big love, and I was absolutely in love with the game. And I played hockey for 10 years actually. And that was my number one sport. But as I got a little bit older and hitting started, out in Pee Wee when hitting became legal, I was always a pretty small kid and born in December. I'm born in late December. That's not great for hockey either. So I was way smaller than the rest of the guys. And I got roughed up a little bit a couple times and ended up taking some trips to the hospital, actually, which kind of freaked me out, to be honest. So,
no kidding.
And skiing was just something our family did, always had. My grandparents skied, but we're talking like gorp eating, knicker wearing, not knickers because they're not that old, but I'm like, maybe like gaiters and a trail mix and going out with a backpack kind of thing, that kind of skiing. Nice. So I grew up doing that ever since I can remember. I mean, I feel like I was skiing since I was walking, but racing was never a big part of it. And I think it's just the community, growing up in Sudbury, we had a good community, and I raced with Laurentian Nordic for my whole junior career. And we had I was in a big club by all means, but it was a good group of guys and we were friends. And, that always makes a big difference when you have good peers around you.
Yeah, I can imagine. And now with that being said, I don't know if you've heard and I'll make this like real quick about it, but I guess the university is in debt, so they're trying to sell the land that those trails are kind of occupying stuff, which is very, very, I don't like it because I was training on it the other day with a friend of mine doing some like sprint work and stuff for our for competitions. And so doing that, I was like, man, do you hear? And he's like, this is it's the worst, because who knows, like they might sell the whole track, all the loops and stuff. It's just property to them. So
I'm so disappointed. There's been some things in the past. I don't know if you've followed along, but maybe some of your listeners have followed along with the university before it became known that it's been mismanaged for decades.
Oh yeah.
Before that was known publicly, there was a lot of talk that they were going to try and sell some of that land to put another thoroughfare, to put another road from the south end into the university, right through that wilderness area and that wild space. And I was so against that because, I mean, that's a real jewel of the city. And for a city that's, you know, I know that Sudbury itself isn't quite this big, but the greater Sudbury area is 160,000 people, and to have a university with a green space right in the backyard like that, that should be protected. I know I'm biased.
Absolutely.
I know I grew up there, and I grew up skiing on those trails and exploring those trails and running and everything, mountain biking.
Yeah.
But that's a real gem of the city of Sudbury, and Sudbury has a lot of scars in its history because of big industry. I know Inco, and well, what was Inco? Now it's you know, it's all multinational companies, Vale and Rio Tinto and stuff. But I know it's all multinational companies now. But you know, Falconbridge and Inco did a lot of, you know, gave a lot of people jobs in the Sudbury area, but it also destroyed the landscape and destroyed the environment. And the fact that that area behind the Laurentian University and in the South End like that had been pseudo protected, you know what I mean? It was university land that was undeveloped, is a real gift for a city that has had a lot of scars because of not poor at the time. It was just what was known, but questionable environmental decisions that happened in the Sudbury area for, you know, decades.
And looking back on it now, you could say poor decisions in the grand scheme of things now. Looking back on
at the time you didn't know. Exactly. Right. That's exactly right. But I hope that, I mean, I wouldn't put it past them, but I mean, that would be such a huge, short-sighted, mismanaged disaster if they sold the land that was behind there just to put in more houses and destroy it. I really hope that doesn't happen, although I'm not holding my breath. I don't know. But that would break my heart, really. Yeah,
fair. With that being said, so transitioning, when you were in Canmore and you were training, what was kind of the hardest part, like the most intense thing that you guys did to prepare? Because you're like, cross country skiing is no joke. Like, it's not a quick get over with the race, like snap of the fingers, 10-30 second race. Like, it's grueling, man. You're in the mountains training and skiing. Like, it's cold. Like, picked, in my opinion, one of the harder winter sports to be good at. So why? Like, what was something that was
you have to like to suffer. There's no question about it. I mean, if you don't like suffering, it's not the sport for you.
No kidding.
And that's why peer group is so important. And like I said, at Laurentian Nordic, we had just such a great peer group growing up. And then I had a great peer group as well in the national ski team programs for all the years I was on the team. And I mean, of course, the training is grueling. I mean, I remember, you know, some training camps, especially one cycle that we repeated often up at altitude. So it's something that'd be like over 2,500 meters above sea level. And we do these rotations where you'd have like 6 hours of training, but you do like a 6-hour training day, a 6-hour training day the following day, a 6-hour training day the next day, come down to a little lower altitude, do 2 easier workouts of like a couple hours each session, then intervals and strength. So that's probably another 4 hours of training, then an easy day, then a rest day, and then repeat that cycle. And that was grueling. I mean, that is absolutely punishing for the body and mentally. But like you said, you know, the training that you have to do as a cross country skier, as you get older, I mean, it's not something that we don't want like 16, 17-year-olds doing that sort of training. You have to build up to it. But on the international level, for sure. I mean, we train, you know, at my peak, I was training around 1,000 hours a year of training, and that's over like an 11-month period that we count it, really. So from May 1st till April 1st, let's say. So it's a lot of training, and you know, but it's so much fun. And you know, it's like a lot of things in life. If you don't love to do it, it'll eat you up and spit you out, and you won't last. It's not a sport that you can kind of do as a job, really. As well if you do well, but it's definitely something that you have to have a passion for to do. But it, of course, big transition, moving away from Sudbury and my friends and family. And Canmore is, you know, about 3,000 kilometers west. I didn't know many people out there, and you know, Sudbury's a bigger city, and not a bigger city for Canadians, like in Canadian perspective, but Canmore at the time was just under 10,000 people, so that's a big change when you grew up in Sudbury. And I was commuting in the University of Calgary, which is about an hour drive, a couple days a week to go to school as well. So it was a big transition, no question. It was a huge change.
Yeah, you don't say. Geez, so what's a misconception, let's say, that Olympic that people have, like the, let's say, average people have about Olympic or world level, elite level outliers in this case for in terms of Olympic athletes and world champions?
Yeah, I don't know. That's hard to say. We have, a lot of things in Canada that I think is of better and worse. But, the one thing is, like, I think we got this from the US, where maybe like the Olympics looms large in the Canadian psyche or in the Canadian perspective. And I think that's because we're not a sporting country. We're a sports fan country. We like sitting on the couch and watching sports on TV, but we and the Olympics is something that, like, these fringe sports like cross country skiing or biathlon or alpine or a lot of the sports in the Summer Olympics as well, most sports in the Olympic movement are sports that the general population in North America don't get to see on a regular basis. Right. So the World Cup's not shown on TV. It's not followed in the newspaper. We learn every time Connor McDavid changes his his skate lace color. But we don't hear like the in-depth stories of a struggling, or like not just struggling, of a great champion in an Olympic sport. So I think, maybe a misconception would be, like it's for sure. It's a long journey, and you have to love it. And you can't really look to like the big three sports or the big three sports in Canada, really, which would be like NBA, MLB, and NHL. NHL, yeah. Because CFL is not a major sport, but NFL is popular in Canada as well. And it's just, you can't really compare Olympic sports to true professional sports, mainly because you just don't have the funding structures in place. No question.
No, which is tricky. I don't know what they kind of do to switch that, but
yeah, I think, but that again, like, I think it comes down to like this culture that I'm trying to touch upon is, Canada, there's not like an understanding of what a lot of these sports are, because people don't really do sports in Canada. They do it as kids. And then if you're hockey, I think what I did, like my kind of trajectory in hockey is probably like fairly common for a lot of Canadians, where you play hockey I played from the age of 4 to 14, like in organized hockey. But I mean, let's say a normal kid like now, because I don't think you can start hockey until you're 5. So let's say you play like hockey at 5 to 15, and you go to school, maybe play some high school volleyball or something, and then go to university, and then just have no real connection to sport other than watching it on TV. Right. And these people become the business leaders of the country, and they just don't have this connection to how important sport is to develop you as a person, because they have no connection to it other than watching it on TV, like I said. And I think that creates a challenging environment for amateur athletes around the country to find sponsors for themselves, but also to fund programs. Canadian Olympic programs are underfunded compared to their compatriots. And also, another tough thing with that is, like, coming back local, is like these ideas, like what's happening around LU, keep coming back to that. But like, if you had business leaders or even leaders in the university that grew up running those trails, skiing those trails, mountain biking on those trails with their whole family, with their grandparents, with their parents, with their peers, this would be a no question. Of course, we are going to protect this land, and we're going to keep it forward. We can cut other things that were useless with the university, but like, this green space is a shining star of the campus. That would just be such a no-brainer. But in Canada, we don't have that culture. No, if people sit inside and watch TV, they're out of shape, and they just like they don't have the connection to how important that is. And I think that's a misconception of society at large in Canada. But I guess the most common misconception with Olympic athletes in Canada is, that we do train just as much or just as professional as a professional sports, but you just get paid at a way lower level.
Wow. I appreciate you sharing that part, because I think there is a huge disconnect in terms of, as somebody, and I think it goes back to kind of what you said a few minutes ago about why, like, those people in those leadership roles within the university, for easy example, right? growing up with those people, being exposed to those areas and having that connection of my childhood was spent here, or I was learning this stuff, whether it be Sudbury, Alberta, like East Coast, West Coast, it's all the same. And there's a disconnect. And I think going into that, there's a lot of people that don't quite understand, and including myself, like I've shifted from sports and kind of done to different things, but always kind of stayed connected because that's just the beginning part of how I was raised. And it's always just like, I've loved to be active. And so it's like training on the track for whatever reason during this pandemic and stuff like that. So I think it's challenging for all of us that there's a disconnect, and it's just trying to find a way to bring it back to the gross population and like making it more aware, but it's just a matter of how do we do that?
Yeah. And I think how we do that is understanding. I mean, like, this is just kind of, I don't want to get preachy or anything. I mean, people can do whatever they want, but the reality, the facts are out there for all to see. Is the Sudbury area is one of the most unhealthy populations in all of Canada. You know, when you look at like heart disease as a marker, for example. That makes sense. And we do have great nature right in our backyard, but it has to be cultivated. And I think sometimes we get too intimidated too, to be like, oh, we need to be part of something organized, or we need to, oh, I can't do that. Cross-country skiing is too hard, or running or trail running. Like, oh my God, are you kidding me? There's bears out there, or something like that. Yeah. And we just need to be a bit more desensitized and lower the bar a little bit, instead of like everyone, those woods, especially just using LU as an example, like the South End forest there and the trails that are through there, those are access for all to use and enjoy. And you get so much out of that, and I mean, every generation too. I think that's what, I mean, sure, I had a little bit of an interesting upbringing with both my parents are pretty hippie and like all about the outdoors and spending time outdoors and stuff, not training necessarily, but just like hiking around. I mean, they were taking pictures of plants and talking about birds, which I thought is the most boring thing on planet Earth. But we were outside and I was climbing on those rocks and messing around and exploring and stuff like that. But I think that is that it creates a curiosity and an appreciation for nature. And I think a lot of people are intimidated, honestly. I think a lot of people are intimidated to go out into the outdoors and explore, because they've never done it before and they don't know those trails, and they're not trail signs everywhere. And it's not, it's getting more and more. But I mean, like when I grew up, like I remember being grade 8, so then like 13 or whatever, and training with guys that are like 18. I never ran deep into those trails. I mean, I ran like the 3 loops or whatever, the gully loop, and shed loop, and the wall and stuff. But like aside from that, like way out on Simics, or like running out towards way deep into the South End. Like, I mean, I'd never ran on those single track trails before in my life, and I'm running with 18. I was like scared shitless. Like I'm like, don't get dropped. Like if I get dropped, I have no idea. I'm never going to get home. I'm going to die out here. And that was with my sports club. The ski club. So I mean, I understand that people feel intimidated when they got off like what is essentially like a small gravel road and into that's those smaller trails. But I just encourage people to just like start slow and get out there and move, because movement is medicine. If we could just all go out and get out into the woods every day could be like 20 minutes, man. You don't have to make it epic. You don't have to do like some 4-hour mountain bike way deep into there, but just getting out even just wait on the nicer days. Like, if this is something you're new to and it's not something you're used to doing, going for a little hike or a trail run, like slow, like super slow, like walking the uphills or whatever, and just like getting out there a little bit, like, and appreciating what you have in our backyard in Sudbury, I think would go a long way. And like you said, I just think there's a disconnect, man. Like if we all of a sudden we're going to close like 15 hockey rinks in the Sudbury area, like people would go ballistic. But like a forest, they're like, well, what's the point? Like, whatever, we should put houses and stuff.
And they cost more money to maintain arenas.
Totally. And then again, like I said with hockey, is like, I think it's an amazing sport. I love hockey. I still love hockey, and I was so in love with hockey growing up. But for the vast majority of people, they play hockey till they're in their teenagers, then they go away from it, and then some drift back into like beer league hockey where they play once a week with their buds, and which is awesome. But these woods are there to be enjoyed by all at all times, and I think it's something that's worth protecting. But I also think the only way it's going to be protected is if we can shift the culture, nudge the culture a little bit over to like lower the bar of entry. You don't have to be hardcore dressed in spandex ripping around. You can go out there with a backpack, with a sandwich, and or with a pair of like 3-stripe pants and cheap running shoes, and just go for a half-hour run on some of those trails, because we have beautiful trails in Sudbury. So I think that's been, I think that's something that we could help do in Canada all around. I think that's the difference you see in Scandinavia compared to Canada in general, is like there's not, people aren't, it's just so part of the culture to get out and move and be out in nature, running, skiing, biking, kayaking, anything like, but you'll see all types. You'll see professional athletes that have like the best ski technique you've ever seen. They're fit as hell. They're probably world champions and stuff. But then you see like whole families, man. You see like dogs are out there. You have dogs on the ski trails. You have 80-year-olds with their grandkids going slow. And it's just like people are just out moving. And I think when you have a whole population like that, it's easier to protect natural areas because everyone has a connection to it. And then also for funding. I mean, speaking for cross-country skiing, which is kind of tricky to fund in Canada. Yeah. Of course, it's tricky to fund when people don't understand what it is you're doing. Yeah. Whereas in Norway, sports is a huge part of it, and cross-country skiing is their national sport, so that's a bad comparison. But take like rowing or something like kayaking in like racing in Norway. I mean, they don't have like they have good athletes, yes, that have won medals and stuff like that, but they don't have like this deep-seated rich history. But those athletes aren't struggling to make a living, to do their sport.
Still taken care of and everything.
Well, taken care of maybe is a stretch, but they like if they go in and try and look for sponsorship, for example, they're not having to start all the way from like, okay, this is an Olympic sport, this is what I do. Like, even though people don't know rowing intimately, they understand what pursuing a sport is. You know what I mean? And that's something that in Canada we lack. We just lack.
Is that understanding?
Yeah, totally.
So what's the process like of getting a sponsorship or a sponsor, for example?
Yeah, I was never good at that. I mean, I sucked at that, and I hated that as an athlete. It was something that I just like, oh my God. To be perfectly honest, like the thing that worked the best for me, there was 2 things. One is just ski fast. I mean, if you're doing your sport and you're good, you excel at stuff, especially with equipment sponsorship. Yeah. You think about like skis or sunglasses or poles, like it's nice to get that stuff for free. But you get that when you're on the national team, that's taken care of early. Oh, nice. But when you ski fast, you get paid to use it. So Fisher will pay you, or Oakley will pay you, or, to use their products. And that helps. Of course it helps. And then you have bonuses. If you do well internationally, you get paid more. Nice. So that was something that, and prize money on the World Cup is good. I mean, if you win, or when I was racing, they changed the payment structure a little bit, but like when I was active, you win a World Cup was 15,000 Swiss francs. So that's like 20,000 Canadian. So that's a good payday if you win. So if you're good, you make good money. But it falls quickly. If you're 10th on the World Cup, it was 250 Swiss francs in my days. And that's like, $330 or something. That doesn't pay the bills. No. And that's 10th. And you're 10th in the world. Like, you're good. Like if you're 10th in the World Cup, you're pumped because
like you're up there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard. And you get paid. Your prize money from FIS is the International Ski Federation is $330 Canadian. But if you win, it's 20,000. So it's like a huge, huge gap. Yeah. Yeah. But anyways, like, so with the sponsorship, like I was dating a girl when I was, for a long time, for almost 10 years, Chandra Crawford, and she's the Olympic champion in 2006 in the sprint. She won the Olympics as a young athlete, 22 years old. It was a huge deal, but nobody is better with sponsors than Chandra. And I was like bad with it. And I hated asking for money. And so I learned a lot from my ex-girlfriend. That is for sure. And like how she would sell herself, and also like make it mutually beneficial and give back to her sponsors. And communication's big. She continues to be like a great communicator. And that was something that I learned from her, is like, if you want to have a sponsorship from a company in Canada, then you better be willing and good to communicate with them and keep them informed and ask them what they want, and then get them excited about what you do, get their family involved, give their kids some ski gear, or like get out there and teach them to ski, or like try and make them a part of your process kind of thing. Yeah. And I thought that always helped, because I mean, just going to people, like I said, Canada doesn't have a great sporting culture. And so if you're going to someone and go like, I'm good at this fringe sport, give me money,
Mm-hmm.
they would be like, what the hell? Like, I'm not going to give you money, dude. Like, no way. So you have to be like, here's why I think I'm worth investing in. You know, I do this professionally, try and educate them and go like, do you have kids? Are they involved in sport? Is there something they're into? Okay, cool. Can I come talk at their kids? I can come talk at your kid's school. I can, you know, do an activities day.
Oh, that's
I don't know.
cool.
You grew up in Sudbury, so like, I don't know if they still do it, but like I was a member of Track North for a lot of years. And they had like this thing called Bobcats for kids.
Yes.
We're like a track. It's like a track camp, like, like after school track camp where you can try like high jump and long jump and running and hurdles.
Jeez,
And there's, you know, you can offer to organize this like a small, not as involved like that, but like, hey, we can, you know, like me and some teammates or myself can organize for your kids' class like a couple activity nights and like get out in the community, and then it's all of a sudden they're investing in you as the person instead of like just giving you money because you ski well or you run fast or you jump. That's not a story. So no. I think that's my advice to anyone looking for sponsorship. But I'm also a bit, maybe some would accuse me a bit elitist or whatever, but like if you want money to do your sport, you better make sure your sport is your priority and you're training hard and you're good. Right. I mean,
it makes sense.
Yeah. I think so. Like that has to be your priority. If you want to be the best in the world, there's no shortcuts in that. And it's going to be a long, tough road for most. So, I mean, these kind of things I said to involve, like to kind of like work with sponsorship is important, but you have to balance that with the work you have to do to be excelling your sport. And that's tricky. It can be tricky.
So now what I'm wondering is, so in the Olympic events with like with the spotlight on you and it being every 4 years, is the pressure different in the Olympic Games versus any other world and elite level competition?
Oh yeah, for sure it is. I mean, like the whole field feels that. I mean, and it's also like, so at the end of the day, like I ended up racing 4 separate Olympic Games, but when you're standing on the start line, you're not thinking that. I mean, it's like, this could be it. This is it. You know, 4 years is an eternity when you're a professional athlete. So who knows where you'll be in 4 years? You know, so you just don't know that. And I mean, so for sure, the pressure is definitely like, it's turned up a notch. World championships as well. That's every 2 years in cross country skiing. So in cross country skiing, you don't have a world championship every year. So that's high pressure too. But to wait 4 years for your next chance, that's something that you definitely have to work with mentally to kind of tune that out and just try and make it as any other competition as you can. But it's kind of hard. I mean, you see sports from all over the world, you're dressed in this stupid gear, like this weird, like Canada gear, and you're seeing like Norway. And it's almost like a Will Ferrell movie, really, because like this is real life, because there's no sponsor markings in anything, so it's just kind of weird, you know what I mean? Yeah,
it doesn't blend in, stands out a little more.
No, that's a huge difference from the World Cup or the World Championships or anything, and you're seeing athletes from all sports, you know, and that's not something you're used to as a cross country skier, of course, or any other sport within the Olympic movement. So for sure, it's definitely a big deal, and the pressure gets turned up a notch. But you know, as a professional athlete, like you get off on that too, because that's, you know, there's nothing better than performing on the biggest stage, and that's what you're kind of burning to do and prove yourself. So with that pressure, while there is increased pressure, it's also a feeling that's like, you know, it's addictive really, because I mean, it's to get into that zone and give yourself a chance to compete against the best on a day everyone wants to win is a pretty cool feeling.
No kidding. Like you crave that adrenaline. Oh,
for sure. And it's not even just adrenaline. I think it's just like, it's more just like, I mean, Olympic athletes are competitive, but in general, but I think it's just like this, it's like anything, when something's on the line, it always, you know, it makes people a lot. I mean, I had a lot of really horrendous races at the Olympic Games. I've had some great races too, but you know, it's but like showing up on a start line or showing up to write an exam that really matters to you, or showing up at a job interview that you for a job you really want. It's all kind of relative, but it all can be linked together. It's like anytime you want something really bad, you feel that pressure, but it also feels that much better when you succeed, or when you even just give it your best shot. Like not every time you succeed, but if you can walk out of that exam or that job interview or the Olympic Games and go like, well, you know what? I was prepared. I trained before this. This was a great race. I did what I could. You might be disappointed right there at the finish line, but with some time you can be like, well, geez, it was the best performance I could have had. And I have to take that with me. And there is a small victory in that, even though there's not a medal hanging around your neck all the time.
Yeah. You know, as long as there's no like regrets about it, right? That's the whole thing. Like you did your best you prepared properly. Like there was no days where you went out drinking with the boys instead of going, you know, like it's.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, and I think I've been on both sides of that, not like the regretting partying hard, but like
that's good.
But I mean, I've had, you get away from a championship and you're like thinking back on the last year and you're like, man, our program, like the national team program, for example, wasn't organized well. And I thought these camps weren't right for me and I did them anyway. And and you have that like kind of regret. I don't actually believe in the word regret. So that's tough because I think like you make choices and I trust the choices. I trust the choices I made there and then.
Interesting. In
my life. And, the cards, it's easy. Regret is easy because you can always have hindsight and look back and go like, if I would have done this, but like, but I trust myself enough. I trust myself enough to think that like, if I could go back in time with the information I had at that moment, there's a reason why I made that decision. If I could jump in the DeLorean and take a time machine back in time and do that choice again, but with all the knowledge I had at that time, I'm pretty sure I'd make the same decisions too.
Yeah. Wow.
So really that leaves very little room for regret, because there's not a lot of choices. There's a lot of choices I wish I'd made differently, but I made them with the information I had at the time. And you got to kind of trust those decisions or else life is pretty miserable.
Yeah, no kidding. It's easy to go back and go, well, what if I did this? Or if I had the game of what if it's never ending. And you end up in like a really miserable pit.
Yeah, totally. And you didn't do it. And it's not about what if. You had choices, you made choices and we can't go back in time and redo those choices with what we know 10 years in the future, 5 years in the future. Like that's just not how this works. So it's a waste of energy, I think.
Fair. That's fair. It's an interesting way of looking at it. Just not believing in regret. So now with that being said though, kind of bouncing off that, do you have, because you did touch on it briefly where you said you have like times where you're like, if I look, disappointed at the end of the race or whatever, or felt really good. But do you have a most memorable and least memorable or least favorite time from, it could be like just an elite level event, like it could be a world championships, it could be an Olympic Games, like it could be whether like a team or a U performance, like a least and a favorite one.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know about a favorite performance necessarily, but like I got like I was actually left with feeling like what if those what if feelings and at the end of 2010, like when the Olympics were all said and done in Vancouver, I thought our team in general made some big mistakes. Like, I mean, we fired a coach at the end of in the spring of 2009 and hired a new coach that had never worked with me or our team before. 10 months to go before the Olympics. Like this is ridiculous. And there was a lot of energy wasted with like some training camp organization. Like, people were a little bit frustrated that we didn't feel like some of the training camps were communicated effectively and we had different ideas. We thought we were sold something that wasn't happening, that sort of stuff. And yet at the Olympic Games in 2010, I mean, I had my season's best performances at those Olympics in Vancouver, but I also came away from the Olympics with a 4th and 5th place finish, which is these are great races. I mean,
I'd take it for sure.
Yeah, like 4th in the Olympics is good and 5th in the Olympics is good. But I remember like crossing the finish line and you're exhausted and it really hit me after the 50K in Vancouver where I was 5th and I missed the medal by like less than a second.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I remember
and then
that.
having those things like flood in and go like, man, oh man, like I've had so many different coaches in the last 4 years because the program was like swinging back and forth like a tree in a hurricane. And, we had a new coach that year. There was training camp disasters, like, and you're left there at the finish line and go like, I just needed this much. I needed less than a second after racing for like 2 hours and 10 minutes. And it was a horrible feeling. It was a horrendous feeling. Cause you're like,
oh my God.
There's so much, like, cause you can't look back I couldn't look back at the end of that race and be like, I did everything I could, and everything I did, I really truly believed was the best it could have been. It was more like I made the best out of a situation I didn't believe was good. Like,
yeah, very different.
Yeah. And when you miss a goal by like just nothing, and then to add insult to injury, I mean, like, that was your chance. I had one chance to do the Olympics in my home country, and I performed well, just not up, but just not up to my goals. And when you see that train leaving the station, like, it's crushing. It is there and then. It was really disappointing. But that said, it really motivated me. And I kind of made a choice after that. It's like, no, I'm not going to. Yeah, like, I don't think I would have won the world championships the season after. Alex wouldn't have won the world championship in 2011 had we not had those near misses in Vancouver. I don't think so.
No way.
Because the resolve was like, no. Like, now we do things the best. Now we do things the best, and it's uncompromising, and I'm not going to take it on the chin, and I'm not just going to roll over like a dog and scratch my belly. It's like, no, because I never want to have that feeling again of like crossing the finish line after like a solid, not just solid, like a great performance, but thinking I would have done this better. I would have done this better. I would have done this better. That's a bad feeling. I didn't want to have that feeling again.
Yeah.
And I was pretty relentless in the seasons following to be like, no, it's like the best or nothing. Like, it has to be. And the results showed for it. The next couple of years of my career were for sure the best of my career. And we made some, not just myself, but our team, it was the best era in Canadian cross country ski history, no question. And to be a part of that, I think those near misses in Vancouver really, really helped us have that resolve to like, no, like, now we do it awesome every day, always,
every damn day.
Yeah. And you do, you see, it sounds so cliche and stuff, but like, I truly believe like results come of that. And I think also people, if you're really honest with yourself and critical enough with yourself, like, you know what good enough, what good is, and what great is, and what everything you can is.
Yeah.
And I think very few people, I think myself included, I think very few people are willing to like really go all in, like, for real. I think not just the vast majority, I think like 99.99% or whatever the population just has no idea what I'm talking about. They'll nod along and say like, oh yeah, like, I see that. It's like, no. But if you're really honest, I mean, if you're really critical, like, can you really dig in with yourself and see and ask yourself, like, how bad do I really want it, or how much am I willing to try? I think a lot of people pull out earlier than is needed, and me included. Like I said, that's kind of like the story of my life. But like, it's at the time anyway, it wasn't just me, but Alex Harvey, my teammate, who's the best Canadian cross country skier that ever lived. He definitely felt that too, and that lit the fire that paid dividends in the seasons to come.
You don't say. Jeez. Because I remember, and at least my favorite memory of your career has to, you and Alex winning the 2011 championships it was in Oslo.
Yeah, it was in Oslo. Yeah. No, it was a crazy,
gangster. Oh man.
It was crazy. I mean, like, to beat Petter Northug, who is, is one of the best male cross-country skiers that ever lived, and is definitely like the rock star of cross-country skiing. I mean, like, there's no bigger name in cross-country skiing than Petter Northug, and like, to beat him on his home turf. Well, he's not from Oslo, but he's from Norway. And like, 100,000 screaming fans, and it's just like, it's it's like anything. Like, if you're a hockey player from Germany, it's sweet to win the German league, but you know what? You can't compare that to winning the Stanley Cup. No. Like, that German player wants to win the Stanley Cup and it with an original six club, you know what I mean? Not with like the Florida Panthers or something, but with like a real, like with the Red Wings or with you know, the Maple Leafs or the Canadians. They didn't know they'd never win anything anymore. But I just like, so that's the same for me as a Canadian skier. Of course, like to win a race in the birthplace of skiing is a pretty special feeling.
Yeah.
And you know, Oslo's venue, Holmenkollen, the venue there, it is the most historic venue we have in cross country skiing, no question. And you feel it when you're racing there. It's something special to race at Holmenkollen, which is just above Oslo. It's the Oslo cross country ski trails.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, but that was of course, there's no question. I mean, like, that was like a huge highlight of my career, and I really think that like a performance like that might not have happened had I got 2 bronze in the Olympics, you know. But who's to say? It's all just like now. It's kind of irrelevant even to reminisce about that. But I mean, I do every once in a while. You know, there is. Again, like silver lining is a stupid way to put it, but it definitely lit a fire in our bellies to do things properly, and it paid off right away 1 year later.
No kidding. So it's weird. I was talking, not talking, sorry. I felt like I was in the conversation, but I was listening to a show earlier today, kind of like prep for just like the energy of how I think we should do this. But the guy said something along the lines of, he was trying to set a personal best in bench press. And they were talking about how failure is good, it's a very good thing, or not in the sense of failure as in you didn't even show up, but as in you gave it your all and it just didn't quite work out. And then the next week you're able to do that. And then he said the exact same thing you just did on the lines of, if I did it the week before, would I be able to do it this week? You know, like if you didn't, or if you, like you said, got double bronze, and then the next year, would you have placed at the World Championships? Like, how would that have? So it's interesting to hear that.
Yeah. Because you just don't know. I mean, and I mean, like those things are everyone has turning points in their life. I mean, that's the thing. And I mean, like I'm talking about a professional career, of course, in sport, but I mean, the same could be said like in anything. You know, if you're an entrepreneur and are you going to take that risk? Like, are you, you know, maybe you pass on something, and that something you passed on turns out to be like the biggest thing since sliced bread, and you're living with that, like that kind of like angst that like, oh, I missed out on the opportunity of a lifetime.
Yeah.
But that feeling you have motivates you and lights the fire for you to go on and do something totally different and make your own mark in something else. Like maybe that wouldn't have happened had you hit that medium success as an entrepreneur in your first endeavor. And you know, the same could be said as sport. We're philosophizing now. I mean, there's no answer, but it's interesting to think about. And I think it is something that I guess like as a person, like I've always just had like this, like a real, well, one, I'm a pretty curious person. I always have been, but I also like would describe myself as like fairly relentless, like almost like, and that's not, you know, it serves me well in some forms of my life, and it's also exhausting to be that relentless too, because you know it's not something as easy as like turning it on and off like a light switch. I mean, it costs energy to be like that, but it's you know, in the field or like in the realm of cross country skiing, especially as a Canadian, when you don't have the same support as like a Scandinavian team does or Russia does, or you know, the big nations of cross country skiing. And you know, you better be relentless, or else it's not gonna go for you. I'm sorry, you won't achieve what you want to achieve. It's just, we don't have a system in Canada that's set up to allow you to succeed like that.
Just got to be relentless for it. Create your kind of opportunities and just make the most of them.
Yeah, for sure. But also like I said, like I think most people really know. I mean, it's. And if you don't know and you're not that self-aware, then frankly, I'm not sure that you'll, you know, especially in the individual sport, that's for sure, or in business, you know, or in anything that requires like you to build relationships and strong relationships and have a clear goal. I don't think you have to be so self-aware, like, and understand, like, ask yourself those critical questions. Like, you got to check in with yourself. You got to set those small goals, because it's easy. Anyone can just like toss out a bunch of garbage. Like, I want to win an Olympic gold medal, or I want to, you know, I want to make, I want to start a $100 million company by the time I'm 30. It's like, okay, cool. But like that's just such garbage talk. But you have to kind of tell yourself that to motivate. You got to tell yourself something to get out of bed, but then you have to have all these like smaller goals along the way that are like pretty boring. Honestly, super boring. I want to run whatever these intervals, this interval set. You know, I want to be able to run this much further in each interval for a 5 times 5 minute uphill running interval, for example. And maybe that's like a small goal, or in the strength room, that's an easy one. I want to squat like 140 kilograms 4 times with perfect technique, instead of right now I'm squatting 100 kilograms or something. And then it's something you build towards. And then when you start achieving all these small goals along the way, that is actually getting you closer to winning the Olympic Games, or, you know, in business or something, or if you know, you're starting your own thing, and you have a goal to make a $100 million company or whatever. Like, you have to have small goals along the way to keep you focused, because I mean, it's good to dream, but you also have to like put one foot in front of the other at some point. And I think you have to have direction with that, and that's where like maybe that idea of being like a relentless can come in handy. But it's also exhausting to do it that way. That's the facts.
Yeah, and I'm sure, and I think of what you said, and I'm sure you've read it. I think it's by James Clear. I think Atomic Habits, and that was like the kind of whole like the consensus of it is like creating why people, basically it's like, why don't people achieve their goals? Like I want to quit smoking. It's like, well, it's not that easy to just, like you said, flip a switch. Some people could, some people can't, but the starting it, like breaking it down and then developing little systems throughout that can help you achieve that long-term goal. Because the long-term goal isn't necessarily, and you can agree or disagree with this, I'm sure, but it necessarily isn't as important as the role the systems play. So
I 100% agree with that. I'm not familiar with Atomic Habits or anything, but like what you said, I preach, brother. I mean, like I totally agree. I mean, I think it is important to have dream goals, and I think it is important to like write it down or say it to a friend or your parents or something if you really want something. Because I mean, there'll be days where it's just pouring rain for 10 days in a row and it's cold and you've been sick and you just don't want to get out. Like, you're like, fuck it, I don't want to do it. And like, sorry to swear just there, but like, you know, and you just don't want to, you just don't want to. And then it's good to have a dream goal, because you're like, well, you know what, I do really burn for this. And then that's great. But 100%, I mean, anything, at least, but this is myself, like I can only speak for myself. And I think like any dream goal I've had, once I've achieved it, it's just like instantly becomes devalued. And then that's how you realize, like, not to get all Zen or whatever, or like Buddhist or about it, but like it is about the systems, and it is about the journey, and that's what, I don't know, like that's where I found meaning in sport, no question. It's like standing on a podium, like with your arms in the air, like an idiot. Like, it's elation for sure. There's elation there, and it's electric, no question. But it's just such a fleeting moment. And if you're doing it, or if like I could have never continued as this like international ski racer for 17 years with just that. Like, I mean, it's empty. But like falling in love with, like I said, curious. Get to travel the world, explore different places, explore the limits of my mentally and physically. To share that with many different people from all walks of life and all over Canada, but also, like I said, we had a lot of staff from Europe, and we spent, you know, like 7 months of the year, every year in Europe or around the world, like traveling like over 200 days a year. And that journey, that's the beauty, and it's like it's in those minutiae that I found meaning, and that's what I remember now. Like, I mean, people often ask me, it's like, oh, like how was it to, like, you know, how was it to win this, or how was it to be like up there? You know, like honestly, kind of seriously, like empty. But what I remember is like those workouts, those beautiful runs in the Alps, or skiing like skiing in St. Moritz or skiing in Pontresina in Switzerland, and just the sun setting over the Alps, and you're totally by yourself and it's perfectly groomed, and you're like a kid from Sudbury.
No.
You know what I mean? And you're like, this is my life, like pinch me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's what you remember.
Epic.
Or just like stupid car rides with your teammates, like joking around, laughing till you cry, like about something meaningless, like completely meaningless. Yeah. And then the highs and lows of everything, like in people's lives, like really getting to know people. And it's cliche, but it's true. Like, your teammates become like a family to you. And when you spend that much time with people, I mean, you get to know them at a really deep level, and you see them at their best and you see them at their absolute worst. And that, I don't know, that's what makes the journey worth it to me. That's what's made it worth it to me. And when I close my eyes and think back on it, I mean, that's the stuff I'm so thankful for, not winning any sort of race or anything like that. Because there's new champions now, like, as there should be. There has to be. No, but there also has to be, like, as great as like the best hockey players in the world were, like Mark Messier. Yeah, he was great. Wayne Gretzky's touted as like the best hockey player that ever lived. When I was growing up, we had pictures of Wayne Gretzky all over my room. Like, of course, Mario Lemieux, they're great. But like for the kids now, like Wayne Gretzky's just some old dude that talks on TV. It's like Connor McDavid too. They all like want to be, or like Ovechkin. They want to be like a sniper, like Ovi. Like that's what they want to be now. And you know what? In some years, Ovi is just going to be like some old weird Russian dude. Like there'll be a new, there'll be new hockey players that inspire the youth, the Canadian youth, to be the best and be relentless in their own way. And I think that's what's fun about sport too, is it's ever evolving, and you can't. And anyone that just kind of like sits back and goes like, oh, back in the days, like this is what I used to do, and just starts flexing like that, I don't know, run the other way. I mean, God, I feel bad for them. It's just like such a horrible way to live your life. Well, you know what? I'm not going to judge anyone else. The whole way, I just did judge them, but I didn't mean to, but I guess I kind of did. But
that's your episode. You say what you want.
No, but I guess what I was going to say, like for me, that's just not how I don't see value, and I don't see anything in that. Yeah,
that's fair. It's like it's a living in the past but in like the opposite of the, oh man, I was back in the day. It's weird. It's weird because it's living in the past from like a different way than the standardized way of thinking about it. It's like, if I would have done this, I would have been like, well, but interesting. So when we first connected a couple weeks ago, we chatted after an exam you had. Now I'm curious to know, because obviously like the skiing's in the past, you've moved forward, you're a married man, you got kids, the whole nine. What are you studying now? Like what was the exam and stuff? What's that like?
Right now I'm actually studying physiotherapy in Oslo, but I live in Lillehammer, which is a couple hours away, so that's not the best situation, but it's okay. There's no physio, wasn't something that was offered in Lillehammer, so that's how it is. But my goal is and has been to study medicine, so I'm hoping to be able to start studying medicine in the fall, but who knows? I mean, you probably have friends, and everyone knows no matter where you are in the world, like it's a challenging program to get into. So it's been quite the journey. And I mean, I'm studying here in Norway. I live in Norway. Like you said, I'm married with 2 daughters under the age of 5. So it's busy times, exhausting, but a lot of fun. But yeah, all my schooling's in Norwegian. So that's been a big challenge. I've been living here for 4 years. So it's, studying in my third language is, for sure. There's some days of hair pulling where you're like, oh my God, like I'll never get this. But a lot like skiing and stuff, like, when you fall in love with someone that lives in a different country, and next thing you know, you wake up and you have kids and a family and you're living in that different country, like all the crying yourself to sleep's not gonna get you where you need to go. So you got to just, suck it up, buttercup, and learn it. And one good thing is I've never been someone that's, I don't know. I don't want to say like take myself too seriously, but I'll try, like I'll hack my way through it. And if my language isn't perfect, like whatever, I'll just keep hacking my way. I'm not afraid to try. And so that's what I'm up to now. And for sure, it's definitely a challenge. And who would have thought? I never would have thought, if you asked me as 25, like
Yeah.
Hey, living in Norway, studying that dream you had when you were like in high school at Lockerbie that you wanted to be a
Yeah.
medical doctor. Yeah, you'll be 38 and you still haven't even started med school, but you're still kind of chasing that dream.
Yeah.
I would have laughed in your face and be like, dude, first of all, I'm not going to ski till I'm like 35, 36. That's ridiculous. Two, I'm not going to live in Europe. Why would I live in Europe? Canada's
Why
the
would I
best
live
place
in
in the world
Europe?
to live. And three, like if I don't get into medical school by the time I'm like in my late 30s, like that ship has sailed. But here I am, and you know, it definitely interests me still, and it's something that I thought about even before I thought about being a cross country skier at a high level. So, you know, we get one chance at life, and you gotta, or at least you can do whatever the hell you want. But for me, like I really feel like it's something that's held my interest for a long time, and sport took everything. I had to put everything into it at the time, and now I'm on this journey, and you know, if I have to be a physiotherapist instead, that's fine. It's not something maybe I burn for quite as much as medicine, but I'm learning a lot, and it's an interesting perspective to see how Scandinavians teach the subject, and like how the profession is done here in Scandinavia compared to what I'm used to as an athlete from a sports physiotherapy perspective. So you always have to put that in a grain of salt, right? But I have a lot of experience with physiotherapists, but just in a sports perspective in Canada. So it's fun to see the differences between Scandinavian perspective and Canadian, and being on the other side. I'm not the athlete anymore now. I'm studying to be the therapist. So that's kind of interesting.
What is something that you found most like eye-opening about the way that they instruct in schools, or the way their school system is kind of set up?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's hard for me to compare completely, because like I started like I was starting like a biochemistry degree at U of C, or that was the goal. And then I put that on ice. But you know, like now I'm in like a profession study, or like a professional degree in physiotherapy. So like, you know, comparing my experience sitting in like calculus or something at U of C as a first year calculus student, or a second year biology student or something, like you can't really you know, I was just like an ant with like, you know, 700 other people, with a professor that was like mumbling through his slides. Like it was not personal whatsoever, but in physiotherapy, like you just can't learn to be a physiotherapist in that environment. So of course that's not the case now. So it's hard for me to really like comment on that completely. I don't really know, but I mean, it is, I would say there's like a huge level of autonomy in Scandinavian education, where like you have to take ownership for yourself, and that university you have to do that anyway. I mean, like you're not in high school, they're not spoon feeding you
here and there. Takes
or like
a while to get there, but
they shouldn't be spoon feeding you like in university. And in Norwegian university, they 100% are not. Like you better have the motivation to do it, because if not, like
kick rocks.
It sounds kind of brutal, and it's not as brutal as I'm making it sound, but they're definitely like, if you're not willing to put the work in, like Norwegians are tough, and they're not going to wipe your butt and give you a baby bottle and sing you a lullaby. It's like, you know, if you work hard and you ask questions, they're there to answer them and stuff, but you have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet, no question. At least in physiotherapy, at least that's what I'm experiencing.
Yeah, I found, at least from my college experience, is it sounds like similar, but definitely more like if enough students wanted an extension, whereas you guys probably don't think about that. You're like, nah, like teachers probably, not a chance. Or we're like, every single assignment, I would raise my hand at the beginning, kind of half as a joke and half like if they were willing to do it. I'm like, hey, sir, could I get an extension on this one? And they're like, no, Glenn. I'm like, all right, next assignment, ask the same thing, but never got it. But you guys probably wouldn't.
I like that. I like that attitude to try. But yeah, no, and I would say like but again, like studying physiotherapy, it's just hard to. It's hard for me to compare that to like what like it was like when I was studying a bachelor's degree, and so it's like I don't know. It's it's a challenge, but no, it's interesting. It's an interesting experience, but doing all this in Norwegian is pretty hardcore. Like, I feel like it's, that adds another level, that's another dimension, because like, it's not my first language, like I said, and I haven't been speaking it for all that long. So,
but a few years now, you've been speaking, like, how do you take lessons or?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like when I moved over here after my career was done, like to get residency, you had to like, there's so much stuff I didn't know. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, this will be fine. I don't have to do any of this. But like, I actually had to go to like language school. Like I had to like, you can't study, of course, like, you know, but in Canada, think about like, have you had professors? I have in Canada, they can't speak English. Like,
Oh yeah, not a lick of it.
no, they're like, blah, blah, blah. It's like,
Yeah.
what are you saying, dude? How do you get this job? Like, you can't communicate. You know, it's like, and you look, maybe you obviously took like an ESL, like some ESL course,
Yeah.
maybe bought one online or something. I don't know. But like, it's like, but in Norway to study in university, there's definitely like language equivalency or like language proficiency tests that you have to pass, and they're hardcore, dude. Like this isn't just some like joke of a ESL course that yeah. So like, so I the first year I went to like, yeah, essentially like a Norwegian school is 20 hours of class a week. And yeah, I'm like writing, listening, like reading comprehension, writing, listening comprehension, and then speaking. And then I had 4 exams that I had to pass that allowed me to study at the university level. Like, so I was like,
That's
and I
crazy.
didn't think it was going to be that hardcore. Like, I thought it was like, I think, but the government, you know, we like Norway's quite a socialist country and has an amazing political system, no question. But so me with my family residency permit that I was with, like I was able, like I had 600 hours. I had to do 600 hours and like I didn't have to pass the level of exams I did because you don't have to go to university, you know, but if you want to go to university, you have to pass this level. And the thing that was kind of interesting there too is like in Norway, university's free. So I think that's probably why. Oh yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, it's totally free.
Oh.
Oh, you have it. No, there's a semester fee. Sorry, this is what's funny. You have to pay a semester fee. It's like, I think it would be about $80 Canadian. So it's free. Yeah, it's totally free. So medical school, like if I get into medical school in the fall, it's free. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Where,
dude.
Like, where does that money come from to fund like teachers and stuff? Is that like
Norway's loaded for one, oil.
Yeah.
And they you know, they took care of the resources really well. It's a high tax base. You know, you pay an insane amount of taxes here in Norway. The cost of living in Norway is insane. It's really expensive.
Right.
I would say it's probably like it's between 2 and 2.5 times more expensive than Canada. Like for your cost of living. But at the same time, you know, if you go to university and you don't come out with like buried in debt.
Yeah.
But also like the inequity in the culture too is something like very different than Canada. I mean, I grew up thinking like, let's take a doctor's salary or whatever, where people are like, I heard of so many doctors in Canada complaining they don't make enough money because they're always comparing themselves to American doctors, you know, and American doctors make way more money than Canadian doctors. They do. Yeah. And then you go to Norway and you're like, oh my God, like the cost of living is over twice as much. And a Norwegian doctor makes like 1/5 or 1/6 what a Canadian doctor makes. 1/5, let's say. Seriously. But that's how your society's structured. Like maybe a family doctor doesn't need to make 350, 400,000 a year.
Yeah.
You know?
For what?
Yeah.
So half the time, yeah.
Yeah. And in Norway, you know, but at the same time, if you're gonna expect doctors in Canada to take on like these insane student debts to take their bachelor's degree and then their medical school, and it costs like just like an exorbitant amount of money, then you know what? Maybe the only way to make this go around is like to pay them a lot of money to like have the incentive that they're going to take this 8 years of education to do it. But whereas in Norway, like you don't have that. So medical school is 6 years, but it's free. You have to buy your book. You have to buy your books. You have this place to live, stuff like that.
That makes sense.
But you don't have any tuition. So
wow.
But then when you graduate, you're not making a whole lot of money. You know, you're making no question a fine salary. Like it's fine. It's not like a
livable salary.
Yeah, it's not like a doctor's hurting to live over here. That's not my point. But it's but they're not ballers. You know what I mean? Not even.
Huh. Interesting, because I know friends now, and I talked to a few of them, and I have one friend, she wants to pursue, like she wants to go from a lab technician to study nursing, but can't afford it because she's still paying off. but they're like, oh, it's gonna be 4 more years, but I'll be making X amount more. It's a weird justification, right? And then you almost feel like you have to make it back after, like, oh, I need to work in the field for X amount of hours in order to make back the education, and then, well, now what?
Yeah, and I think that's a failure in the Canadian government, honestly.
Yeah.
I think we're so heavily influenced by the US that like this free market idea. I'm not going to just sit here and start sounding like a commie, but still, like something like education costs. I think like we in Canada, we just celebrate so hard that we're not the US, and that's great. It is great. I mean, Canadian education is so much more affordable than the US. It's not even funny, and we should celebrate that it is that. But is it a perfect system? Not even close.
Not even close. No.
Like I not to sound like Bernie Sanders or whatever, but like I see no reason why you couldn't have, have university, maybe not free like it is in Norway or something, but like have something like heavily subsidized. Make it affordable so that your friend that's a lab technician, it's like, if you really burn for nursing and you want to help in the healthcare field, in a field that is needed in Canada, you should have that opportunity and not put yourself at a serious disadvantage to do it. You should be encouraged to do that because Canada needs nurses and needs motivated nurses. So instead of having all these barriers like we have now, I think there's a lot to be improved. But anyway,
no kidding. Jeez, it's one of those things that, like, that's what I was looking forward to as well with this. I was like trying to understand the way Norway runs things, because as close as I got to Norway was Germany. Yeah. When I did my traveling when I finished school and traveled out through Europe, that was as close as I got. And I was like, never went up. But I remember, and it's touching on that healthcare thing you mentioned, where my buddy, I think his appendix burst or something. While he was like leaving Switzerland, because he climbed the Alps, met me in Germany. Yeah. In Germany, when the day before he's supposed to meet me, his appendix burst or something, and he was in the hospital. And I was like, dude, what's going on? He's like, German healthcare system is ridiculous. I'm like, bad? And he's like, no. Like, they're quick. They are like just so engaged and personable. I was like, that's incredible. Yeah. They're not just coming in, writing, prescribing, and leaving. So it's interesting. Very interesting to see. Yeah. So.
Yeah. No, it is an interesting environment. Yeah. And Norway. But I mean, like, I believe a lot in a lot of the politics that Norway puts forward. So it makes sense that it's been easy for me to live here because of that, because it's a lot easier for me to live in Norway than it is to live in Alberta from a political standpoint.
Wow.
Like, I mean, I think like Alberta politics is disgraceful. It's disgusting. So.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
That's crazy.
Right. But think about this, like, not to dwell on this too much, but just think about this, and this will piss some people off, but then I hope that they can just stop and think about it. Like, think of the redundancies we have in Canada, and no one can really answer me why we have them. So, why does every province have their own rules for driver's licenses, for example, or speed limits? Why do we have an Ontario driver's license? This makes no sense. Why don't you have a Canadian driver's license? When you're in Germany, speaking of Germany, there's over 80 million people live in Germany. Like almost 90 million people live in Germany. Yeah. There's not Bayern or Saxony license plates. It says German. It's like the D, Deutschland. That's it. Yeah. Your license is a German driver's license. It's not a Bayern driver's license. When you're driving in Bayern, it's not like the learner's permit for a kid that's living in Southwest Germany gets to get their learner's permit when they're 18, but then in Saxony, they get to do it when they're 16. And then all the speed limits and policing and everything is like their own little protected system. Like, why in God's name is a country like Canada that only has like 35 million people? Why the hell do we have every province and territory has their own systems, rules, everything when it comes to driver's licenses and speed limits and policing? This makes no sense. This is a waste of money.
No, you're right. And similar drinking age as well. I find it's like it's drastic.
Exact same. Why in Quebec can you can you drink when you're 18? In Ontario, you can't drink till you're 19. And in Quebec, you can go to a grocery store and get beers. And in Ontario, you can't do that. And it's like, we're one country, people. Like, we're one country, and we're not even a big country. We're a huge country geographically, but not by population.
Yeah.
And this makes no sense. Like, it makes such zero sense. And so much time is spent like arguing about this shit. And like, this is a ridiculous waste of money. Like, it made me like really realize, like, living in Europe has definitely made me realize, like, provincial, like, tribalism in Canada. It's embarrassing. That's what it is. Oh. It's embarrassing that we have such tribalism with provincial politics. Like, there's so much that the federal government could just take care of and should take care of in a country that's so small like Canada population wise.
Yeah. That's man.
But it's just tribalism. That's all it is. It's like, no, I want to do it my way because I'm in Ontario, and you don't understand. Like, driving in Ontario is way different than driving in Alberta. Like, my ass. It's the same.
No.
What's the difference?
No. Yeah, it's not. I've driven like October last year. There and back. West Coast back.
No, totally.
Exact same.
Yeah, exactly. Why can't we have can we streamline this? Yes, we can. Can we save a lot of money? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can we make it a lot easier for everyone? Yeah.
So much easier.
And think about this too. Like I know we're getting way off on the tangent, but like, I moved from Ontario to Alberta.
Yeah.
How come my car has to be safetied? Like, no, it has to be like, no, your car needs to be like, you need to take it to a mechanic and have it safetied.
Again.
So it's okay. It's getting the all clear for to drive in Alberta. It's like, we're one country.
Dude.
Like, why in the hell are there different rules in Ontario and in Alberta for used cars being safe to drive on the road? Like, this is insane.
Yeah.
So there's so much of that in Canada that just makes me like cringe. It's like, oh my gosh, it's embarrassing. It's just embarrassing.
Now,
I'm embarrassed.
That's a very unique perspective that I'm glad we're getting, like, we've gotten into it about it, because I've driven like throughout Europe, and I've driven across Canada and back, and seeing the comparisons just from like that outsider perspective. But hearing you say how drastic and obvious it is on like the way the system is, like, that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, and like, I want to hear, other than the fact that like the tribalism and the like protect your own, I would love to hear a coherent argument as to why Ontario needs completely different licensing regulations than Quebec or than Alberta or than Manitoba.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the federal government should do this. It's just stupid.
I don't know. Like, I can't. I won't be the one.
Does it make no sense? Yeah,
no,
it doesn't make any sense.
I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah, no, it's just like, and that's nothing to say with healthcare. That we'll leave that one aside.
Yeah, that's
that a doctor in Quebec makes X and a doctor in Manitoba makes Y, and like the whole structure of it is just like, what a mess.
There's no standards or anything. It's like the freedom argument, but then
but like, but it's not a freedom argument, because you can't, you're self-sufficient without federal funding. No healthcare system, no provincial healthcare system in the country operates without federal help. So like, why do we have provincial healthcare? I don't get it. Why do I have an Ontario health? Like, I have an Alberta health card, or I did, but I don't now. But like, why do I have an Alberta health card? Why aren't I Canadian? Yeah. Like, what is this? There's not a Bayern health card in Germany. There's not a Saxony health card. It's a German. No. You have a German health number. That's what you have. Riddle me this. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Man, I don't know. Yeah. Oh man, I'm kind of like, and that's something that I've found as I get older, that because as of right now, and I guess the way every country, and it's obvious how every country is dealing with the coronavirus differently now, kind of seeing and then hearing and then taking in different perspectives. I've always kind of been rather impartial to politics, depending on like what way my industry that I'm working in is going. That's kind of like, that's the cap for me. It's like trying to be informed and educated well enough to make informed decision, but it's kind of impartial. So hearing that kind of stuff, and then trying to dive into it is that's something that I've been trying to get more into lately and understand. And I can't quite fathom, because a lot of it I'm like, well, this country does this. Like if you do a comparative analysis of it,
exactly.
It's weird. It's weird to me, man. I don't quite understand.
Totally. And but take the coronavirus. This is a great example. Like Keeney out in Alberta, like, what are you doing, dude? Like, why are you making the calls? This is, or Doug Ford.
Yeah.
Why is the premier making any call? Like, shouldn't you have a national strategy? This is a pandemic. Like, we need a national strategy for a pandemic. And why are all these idiots like in these premiers that like, what? Why is Alberta's strategy? How can Ontario's strategy be so wildly different than BC's strategy when we're one country? It's disgraceful.
Yeah,
it's a total. It's a disgrace.
Mm-hmm.
And so and like I feel it's just like it's like head scratching.
Yeah.
You know, like, because you do not have the same nightmares. And I'm not going to compare it to Norway, because Norway is too small. It's like it's a 5.5 million people. You can't compare a country of 35 million people to a country of 5.5 million people. But like, and like a lot of European countries got destroyed with the coronavirus. I mean, Germany is a great healthcare system, like you said, very well organized, like the leader of Europe. It got just demoed with the coronavirus, no question. It had a national strategy, so it hasn't been working either. But it's still like in times of crisis, I just, why do we have these provincial leaders, these tribal leaders, essentially, like just like fighting with other people instead of just like rallying around the cause, which is there's a pandemic in our country. What's the best way forward on this? And let's all fall in line and let's do it. Yeah. Because like the risks that affect Manitoba are the same risks that are going to affect Alberta, which are the same risks that are going to affect Ontario. And we owe it to our citizens to mount the best defense we can on it, instead of like all this infighting and like all these wildly different strategies. Like I just like, it's not something I thought about when I lived in Canada, because it's just so normal. But like after living in Europe, I'm just like, this makes zero sense to me.
That's so cool. Like that's a very cool like perspective you have on it. And it's funny you mentioned the individual provinces, I should say, because we did me and 4 of my best friends took a trip last year for 2 weeks during the midst of it, let's call it that. And we left from Ontario to Manitoba, but we called Manitoba right before we showed up, and they're like, state of emergency, you have to stay here or quarantine or just drive straight through. And that's what they ended up letting us do. And we show up, we stop once for gas, and they're like, masks are recommended, do this, whatever, but there's state of emergency. But then you go to Alberta and it's fine. And then nobody in BC really cares. But Alberta's like, all restaurants closed. And then you get back to Ontario and they're like, you can't flick a booger without people getting mad at you. Like there's all these crazy things that I'm like, I don't understand. So hearing you say that it's that much more obvious when you're away is kind of like,
oh yeah, it's super obvious. Like what you're saying is like, it's the definition of like madness is what it is. Like it's full on madness that Alberta can steer their pandemic response wildly differently than Ontario can. This is madness. This is what it is.
Yeah.
So
it's
I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a topic that I'm sure we go on with.
Oh yeah.
Forever, and it's not gonna not gonna end, because there's no outcome.
This conversation has just been a lot about philosophizing, which is essentially just filling the airways. So that's it. But that's interesting. So there you go. Just to swing back into like what we had talked about before, it's like anytime you live in another country, and I'm not just living as an expat either. You know, like my wife is a national; she's a Norwegian citizen. My kids, they don't even speak English to me, which is a real bummer, but I only speak English to them. So a little bit of French too, but, their grandparents are they're living in a Norwegian society or whatever. So like, but it does offer you a lot of perspectives. And I think like with my racing career too, like that's the biggest thing to take away. And I think if you interview any of the other athletes I raced with, throughout my career, they'd say the same thing. It's like, you get it, even though you're just a traveler as an athlete, or mostly like not even a traveler or an observer, because you're just so in your own bubble. But after you do it for like 15 years, man, like you really do get a sense of different cultures and different perspectives and different people and meeting different people and feeling comfortable in many different places. And, and of course you compare what you're seeing and how things are run to what you know back home and this sort of things. And you have amazing discussions like we're having now around the dinner table about all these kind of stuff and long into the night. And that's what makes that time memorable and makes it worthwhile and makes it so you can do it year after year. Because if you're not having those real moments with your teammates, like you won't last in the game that you have to pack your bags and leave for 5 months. It's just not going to happen. So but you definitely become like not just a world traveler, but you gain a lot of different perspectives from a lot of different countries and a lot of different people from those countries, and that's what makes it worth it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of why, like, a genuine reason and a genuine curiosity I have for that perspective and wanting to understand just everything. And I know as that much of an umbrella term as, all information ever. It's like, yeah, it's just more of an educate myself, educate my viewers, and then try to understand as much as I can to help, whether that be like my future children or generations or my friends, relationships, like people like that. So I think coming full circle with that is kind of like there's a genuine curiosity, and I think more people need to have an open, and it's easy for me to say that sitting here, but to
of course,
like open mind to want to understand more instead of just close it up being like lockdowns are stupid. It's like, okay, well, the government's putting trackers in us with the vet. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay,
all right,
put down the weed. Put down
just take a second. Too much.
You're paranoid. Full on paranoid. Yeah.
That's funny.
No.
But
yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, but and I'm not to say, like, I'm not sitting here saying that like, oh, in Europe it's so much better. Like, of course not. I mean, like, as beautiful as Norway is, and it's an absolute beautiful country, it doesn't have the wildness that Canada has, right? Like, and that's what I miss. I miss that. I miss my family. I miss my friends, but I miss the wilderness in Canada, and that is so special. I mean, you know, I lived 16 years in Alberta and in Canmore, which has got busier and busier and busier. But like, if you wanted to be alone in the Rocky Mountains, it's pretty easy. Hike one mountain range over, you will see nobody. You will see still. Yeah. You know, hike 40K over one mountain range into another. Maybe you have to do even one more. You will see nobody. Same in Ontario. Yeah. Like, yeah, for sure. We grew up, my dad is a parks planner. So like we did a ton of canoeing and camping, and that's how I grew up. And, you know, like when I was 5 to when I was 18 on family canoe trips through Killarney, of course it changed. And I couldn't even imagine what Killarney is like now. I mean, because it's so beautiful, it's probably just exploded. Yeah, very much so, even more. So maybe that wilderness experience that I had as a 7-year-old is gone, and it's gone forever. But if you want a wilderness experience in Ontario canoeing, by all means. Oh yeah, you can find it. Hire a bush plane, chuck your like canoe and your family in that, get the guy to fly you north, like, go for it, man. You'll see nobody, just organized to get picked up. Like, you'll have the real, and that's Canada's the best country in the world as far as I'm concerned. Like, for sure there's some things politically that are left to be desired as far as I'm concerned, but by and large Canada's run very, very well. And you know, that wildness and that and then the people, of course, but I'm Canadian, so I'm super biased, but I mean, Canadians are the best people in the world, so there's but cool. We're also sensitized to that, you know. No, Norwegians are great, but God, they're arrogant. So it's nice to get some more, you know, everybody gets with humble, more humble Canadians is always nice. Yeah, I can imagine. So then, Devon, with as we kind of trail to the end of this conversation, do you have any kind of last thoughts or advice? Let's say I'm weird with that word, but any lessons that you'd like to pass on, whether that be for my audience, your audience, people you don't know, or anybody just stumbling upon this? It's hard for me to give like any sort of concrete advice other than like, you know, I just think like it just, so it's super cliche, but like, don't be scared to like follow your dreams. God, that sounds so bad, but like, I mean it, man. You know, it's there's always going to be a lot of haters. There's just that's just part of life, and even more so now. And it's when I grew up, like I'm 38, right? So we didn't have, when I was a teenager, I didn't have smartphones. You know what I mean? Like we had the internet, yeah. So we had that, but it wasn't just like such integrated part of our lives. But if you're into something, don't be afraid to go after it. And no matter what community you grew up in, there's great people. I mean, we started talking about high school and stuff. Like, I still think so fondly of like teachers at Lockerbie that made a huge impact on me, and all these experiences shape who you are. And without those experiences, like who knows where I would have ended up? Who knows if I would have had the gumption or the insanity to chase after some of the things I chased after. But and also too, like this idea of risk, like I think we build this term up in our minds like deeply, and it's like, what is the risk? I mean, I just see it as a little differently. I don't know what it's like. Maybe you can attest to this, but like when I was in high school and stuff, and that last year, like in OAC, like everyone just talks about universities, like what universities are you going to go to, what, like you're applying for universities, I want to get into this program, this, that, and the other. And like, I don't understand why there's not more discussion where we just stop and go like, you're 18. Why do you have to have all this figured out now? Like, what is it even the best to go to university from 18 to 22? Is that even the best thing to do? Or like, should we more encourage, like, what are you into? Maybe take a year or two, like not just a gap year, but like take an adventure if that's what you're into. If you're not into that, work and see what that life's like. Cause nothing will make you want to go to university than working for a year, doing like some hard labor as a roofer or something, to be like, oh, you know what? Maybe like I'm tired and sore, and like, am I tough enough to do this for the rest of my life? Like that can really motivate you to go back to school. Or maybe it's your calling and you're like, you know what? I got so caught up into this like university game where I felt like I really had to go to university, but I didn't know what I was going to take. So I took some random thing, but all I really wanted to do was be a roofer. Right. And like, so I think like take your head out of the ostrich hole every once in a while and look around. And I think that'll always serve you well, because everything feels so desperate and it feels so competitive and it feels so now and it feels so like important right there and then. Like, no, I need to be on this path and need to be like charging towards like this, graduate high school, go to university, get a job. Like it's 2021. That's not real life anymore. I'm sorry. Yeah. It like the life of like your grandparents or something that you could just like work in the same job for 40 years and get a good pension. Like it's gone, man. So, or maybe it's not gone. It's just so different. So my only advice would be like for young people, especially like graduating high school and stuff, if that's really what you want to do, and there is some kids that really know what they want to do, and all the power to them, like go for it. Like just put your head down and study hard and just chase after your dreams and give her. But if you're one of those kids that doesn't really know, don't be intimidated by that, because I see a lot of opportunity in that. Personally, I think it'd be like my best advice would be like, don't participate in that. Like why participate in that and spend all this money and all this time going to get a university degree right away in something that you have no idea if you're into or not? Like take a year, take 2 years, learn about yourself and see what you're into. And, hopefully if you have parents in the family that supports you in that, then they'll always be there to help you. Like after those 2 years, you can really, or a year, at least you can really narrow it down. And when you get to university, you'll have so many better skills, man. You'll be so far ahead of your competition in that, because you got to grow up. Everyone has to grow up at some point, but that's my advice. Don't be afraid to take the risk.
I like that. That's I think it encompasses well kind of who you are and kind of where you've gotten to, and that you're studying later in life, and it's probably better than doing it right out the gate. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I study with guys, I'm studying with guys that are like 23, 24, and like, we're buddies and stuff, and we chat and study together, but like, of course, they don't have the life perspective as me. I'm not saying like wait till you're 38. I don't think any parent would be like into that, but like I filled my time doing something else that I thought that I wanted to do, and I felt like I had to do it with everything I had. So, but but for sure, I mean, I think from the studying perspective and that sort of thing, if you really know what you want and you're goal driven and you're like, sure, by all means, give her, pin her, and like go for it. But if you're having second thoughts and you're doubting and stuff, like, and you burn for adventure, what's on your bookshelf? I mean, you know, what books do you like to read? What, you know, I know a lot of people don't even like reading books. I was always loved reading. So maybe that's a bad example. What series are you watching? What kind of nonfiction stuff are you into? What was interesting in school? Yeah. You know, maybe you loved history, but you're like, I'm not going to get a history degree because what the hell am I going to do with a history degree? And you're scared to do that. And all your friends are in pre-med and you're like, well, I had okay marks, so maybe I should do that too. But like history was the only class in high school you were like wicked into, and you were really into, I don't know, let's take something topical, like the Israeli-Palestine conflict right now. I don't know. Just like, you were like totally into that when you were learning that in school. Why not just like want to take a trip as a young person and like learn about it, ask people, talk with people about it, like take some time to like figure it out more. And you can still do pre-med a year later. It's still there. Like
it's okay to do that.
Yeah. And have an adventure. And if you're really into like, you know, adventures or sailing or something like that, and like that's what you're way into, dude, like, go have an adventure, you know, when you're young and you have the opportunity, and it seems like you need to have this stuff right now. But, you know, there's nothing, I'm not living that, but I mean, I couldn't imagine anything worse than waking up at my age and then being like, having worked a job for 10 years and being miserable and like feeling like I never did anything.
Yeah, fair.
You're only young once, and you gotta chase your passions. And if you feel like you don't have those passions, like, again, like I said earlier in the conversation, is I think just like ask yourself those questions in the mirror, ask more critical questions towards yourself. Everybody's into something, man. Everybody's into something. You just got to find it, but be patient with yourself. Be patient with yourself enough to get to ask about it.
Yeah, and try things, figure it out, like problem solve for yourself. Don't just maybe because of this person. And that's what I was talking to a friend of mine. He's living in Australia right now, and he's 22, and I'm like, man, because he's telling me what advice his parents and his like family was giving him. I'm like, that sounds very specific. I'm like, what do you want? Like, dude, what do you want to do? He's like, figure it out. Just try different things, dude. You're over on the other side of the world.
Totally.
Try things, dude. Just try.
I agree. It out. And also try without being so like judgmental with it too. It's like try for trying's sake. You know, what's wrong with just like be open? Like life will happen. It will. If you let it, it will. Yeah. But when you're like, it's like, you know, playing hockey, like if you know the old adage of like that hardcore hockey coach or whatever, like if you grip the stick, if you want it too bad and you grip it so hard, your hands turn to lead and you're done. You can't, you can't over grip your hockey stick. You have no hands. You won't be able to play. It's the same with life. You know, like if you're so freaked out and like, I need to figure out what I want to do, like it's the same as me giving you a hockey stick and go like white knuckle it, man. Like grip that hockey stick as hard as you possibly can. Yeah. There's no creativity in that. There's nothing. There's nothing but misery. Like, you know. So there's I'll leave that with a bit of zen. And I'm not religious whatsoever, but I just like to. I don't know. That makes sense to me.
No, absolutely. And so with that being said, I really, really, really appreciate you being able to make time in your busy life of work and studying, family, kids, and everything. I really appreciate you being able to make the time for me this, afternoon for me, evening for you. So I really appreciate your time, Devon, and I cannot wait for the feedback on this because I'm excited. So thank you very much.
Thanks, man. Have a great Sunday. Great to chat.
I appreciate it.